The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
I believe that early to bed and early to rise has made me healthy. Whether it's made me wealthy and wise, we could debate that, but that is my living schedule. I go to bed early and I wake up early. So, the Maryland game that tipped off at midnight last night against UNLV? No, absolutely. I didn't watch a second of it. Woke up this morning, checked my phone, found out Maryland won the game. More importantly, or as importantly, Pharrell Payne was back, and he was their leading scorer last night. He had 20 points, 16 in the second half, and they're going to play at a more reasonable time tonight. 9:30 tip-off. No, I won't stay up to see the whole game, but I'll at least see some of it as they take on the number 12 team in the country, Gonzaga. So, it's all about money these days in college basketball. There's a lot of money in this new era tournament, that new era players tournament, I believe it's called. Players Era Festival. Yes, Players Era Festival in Las Vegas. It's got like 16 teams. Eventually, they're going to go to 32. It's money for the school, and that's what this is all about. It's all about the cash to pay the players, and the gold rush continues. And I got to give credit to Buzz Williams, who totally turned over the roster. He's got 15 new players. They did not look good. In fact, they looked bad in that loss to Georgetown where they shot only 25%. But they're playing well now, establishing a little bit of an identity, and we're starting to know some of the players like Pharrell Payne, who, if you were watching a week ago Saturday when they played at Marquette, he went down with an injury that looked like best case scenario, maybe he makes it back after the first of the year. It looked like his hip went one way and his leg went the other way, and they had to take him off the court on a stretcher. And usually when that happens, it's a lengthy period of time out, if not a season-ending injury. And I don't quite understand how Buzz Williams is able to do this, because there's betting on college sports. And I don't know what the line was last night for UNLV, but if you knew that Pharrell Payne was going to play, I think you'd be more inclined to bet on Maryland. And it would seem to me that there should be more transparency on injuries, but Buzz Williams says, oh, no, we don't talk about injuries. Well, I don't know if you can necessarily do that, right? Or maybe you can, because I've heard nothing about a fine or punishment or anything like that. But, great news for Maryland as Payne came back last night, and they overcame a really tough first half. They turned the ball over 15 times in the first half in this 74-67 win. This is the coach, Buzz Williams.
We were discombobulated, which is what they wanted. We made incredibly poor decisions, and we could never get in a rhythm. And so I don't know of those 15 turnovers, how many were live ball, but defensively, our numbers were pretty good at half, considering we gave them the ball 15 times. So I think the solution, or somewhat of the solution, was we just tried to simplify. No matter what they were doing, we were going to do the same thing, and we found some continuity in that. But very lucky, considering how high our turnover rate was, to have a chance to win.
They were only down by 3 at the half, 30-27. Then UNLV led by as many as 8 points, and then Maryland kicked it into high gear. They pulled ahead in the second half with 3-pointers from Miles Rice and Andre Mills during a 10-2 run, and they were up 51-49 with 10 minutes left to go in the game, and then were a comfortable 11 points ahead, 70-59 with less than 2 minutes to go, and they close it out. So they got Gonzaga tonight, and that's a 9:30 game our time, which would mean 6:30 Vegas after finishing this game at like 9:30 at night. So it's like a 21-hour turnaround to do this. And one of the things that Buzz Williams said in his news conference last week was, after we play this UNLV game, I'm going to be up all night preparing for the second game, because you have to play basically 2 games in a day, right? I mean, they finished up, at a period of time Eastern. that was today, not last night, and now they're playing again tonight at 9:30. And one thing we've learned about Buzz Williams, when you ask him a simple question, there's never a simple answer. So he was very happy to receive this question about, so what's your all-nighter going to look like, Buzz?
I don't know what time it is. The first thing I'll do is shower, and then I'll spend 20 minutes just studying this, not because it applies to tomorrow, but it does apply to tomorrow relative to the focus being on us. We have to be really careful, in my opinion, in week 4 of year 1, that we give all of the attention to the opponent, particularly with a short turnaround. We have to make sure that we're applying the lessons that we're gathering information on and making sure that we're succinctly explaining that to our guys where they understand. I think the first part after this is I'll meet with our personnel coach just so I can get a feel for their team, their talent, their experience, etc. And then I'll meet with our defensive coordinator to talk about their premise behind how they play. And then I'll meet with our offensive coordinator. How do they play defensively? How are they going to defend in the post? How are they going to defend ball screens? Do they have any unique defensive principles that are their secondary versions? And then when we get together with the team first thing in the morning, we will do what we call flow, which is where the coach that's in charge of the scout just kind of commentates 6 minutes of them playing. And it's kind of intermingled, maybe 2 minutes from the night, 2 minutes from earlier in the day or earlier in their season. And then we'll go over the first version of their starters. And then we'll come back in the afternoon when we have shoot around. I'm sure we'll be at the hotel, and we'll kind of walk through what we call their gold actions, which are their top 4 things. And then we'll walk through what we anticipate our gold actions will be. And the rest of the time, it's just a lot of the stuff that I put on this that I can be prepared for if adjustments are needed.
So there you go. There's the routine, the whole schedule, the whole shebang from Buzz Williams after the game ended last night to when they tip off at 9:30 tonight. And I realize it is now 6:07, 6:08 in the morning in Las Vegas, and he's been up since the end of the game and is going to be up for at least another 15 hours, right? Something like that, 16, 17 hours. So good luck to them. But they're winning, and they're 5-1 on the season. That was a big win for them last night after a really rough first half, and they've got a ranked team tonight in Gonzaga, so that should be quite a test. Monday Night Football, 49ers win 20-9, and they overcome rough night for Brock Purdy, who threw 3 interceptions. They got bailed out by Christian McCaffrey, who gained 142 yards and scored a touchdown. And San Francisco at 8-4 is in a pretty comfortable spot. Panthers having a surprise season, 6-6, certainly not out of it. They've got an owner in Tepper, who's David Tepper, who's like kind of Dan Snyder-ish. Not quite Dan Snyder, but Snyder-ish. And good for them to have played as well as they have. And Bryce Young, who some thought might be a bust, is turning into a pretty good quarterback. But he struggled last night. And, he's coming off a big game against the Falcons where they had racked up a bunch of yardage. He thrown for close to 500 yards, 448 yards. But in this game, he threw for only 169 with a touchdown and an interception. This was the wrap-up, the usual wrap-up that Scott Van Pelt does with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and their thoughts on the 49ers winning this game.
Troy, I'll start with you. Look, you had a Hall of Fame career, but on nights or days, I guess, when you weren't your Hall of Fame best, you got Emmett back there, right? And on this night, when Purdy's thrown it to the wrong team a few times, you've got McCaffrey. When you got to sort of nurse one to the finish line as they did, what are those games like to try to remain patient in the midst of it all?
Well, it's obviously as a quarterback, you're wanting to play better than what we saw from Brock Purdy, and we all have those nights, some more than others. But I thought that for him coming, he hadn't played a lot of football, first of all, this year. Right. But when you're struggling like he was in that first half and at different times, it is nice when you're able to just come back and get the ball to Christian McCaffrey, hand it to him in my case, Emmitt Smith, takes a lot of pressure off. And even though the numbers overall, when you look at Christian McCaffrey, whether it's this year or even in tonight's ball game, you can't watch this game tonight and not feel the impact that Christian McCaffrey had on this game. So although it wasn't San Francisco's best night, wasn't Brock Purdy's best night, certainly, it is a luxury to have a guy like Christian McCaffrey back there to help you out.
Joe, in the broadcast, you showed Robert Saleh and talked about how well received his return has been there. And you can't help but miss how many cutaways, that's an industry term for when they use the camera to show a shot of a guy. It's talk. Werner or Bosa in a luxury suite, right? They're so banged up there, and they have not been great. Can't get pressure, don't get turnovers. How important do you think it was for this group to perform the way they did and really help pitch in for a victory?
Yeah, I think they're playing really well. I mean, it's pretty remarkable when you lose two guys that are all pros that you don't have on your defense. And, you know, obviously it's a huge hole in the middle of this defense. That Fred Warner, who's been nothing but healthy year after year, game after game, and he's not there. He's headed to the Hall of Fame someday. And then Nick Bosa is as great as there is off the edge with any defense in the NFL. So you don't have those guys. But I don't know. I just sense that with Saleh and with Shanahan, they like a challenge. This is a challenge. I think they've liked coaching the younger guys too. And Robert Saleh is a really good football coach. He and I were talking about it during the week. Love to see that guy get another chance. It feels like the odds were stacked against him with the Jets. And now here he is back in San Francisco, and boy, is Kyle Shanahan happy. He said yes.
Yeah, well, some of these guys are just better as defensive coordinators. Steve Spagnuolo, has proven to be an incredible defensive coordinator with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's had a couple of shots to be a head coach, hasn't worked out. Most of these guys get two. Maybe Saleh gets another chance. But being a defensive coach, not necessarily the best, not the worst thing. I mean, what we've seen in Houston proves that a defensive guy can be successful. But I wonder if Saleh will get another shot. I don't think he's going to get it in this hiring cycle. But he has done a great job with, as they point out, a bunch of injuries there. Speaking of injuries, we'll get to what's going on with the Commanders and what Dan Quinn said. Again, it doesn't look likely that Jaden Daniels is going to play on Sunday night. It looks like they're targeting the Minnesota game, which is the week after, a game on the road. But that's an encouraging thing that he was in practice yesterday. And as for Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, not sure. Will Harris looks like he's going to be back from that broken leg and will be on the field. The safety, the cornerback, Will Harris, will be there on Sunday night. Let me mention this. I don't think, and I wasn't even 100% positive, I don't think many people know that Maryland has a track team, because at one point it was on the chopping block. Remember, this was as Debbie Yao had overexpanded the stadium and done some foolish things. They were in big financial trouble. Maybe this was a bailout from the Big Ten membership. It might be. But obviously they do have a track team, because they landed one of the, if not the number one track prospect in the country. And his name is Quincy Wilson. He is at Bullis, and he has already won a gold medal. So he's already participated in an Olympics 2024. Became the youngest track and field athlete to earn a gold medal competing in the heats in the 4x400 relay. Now, of course, he's preparing to compete again in 2028, which is going to be in Los Angeles. It's going to be here. And so he has committed to Maryland for track. The greatest track and field athlete, hands down, in the history of the University of Maryland is Ronaldo Nehemiah, who competed there in the late 70s and the early 80s. I believe he graduated in 1981. Still in town, has worked as an agent, does a lot of business things, been very successful, and pulled off one of the most incredible things an athlete has ever done. He had not competed in football since high school. The 49ers signed him, and he played wide receiver there for 3 years, winning a Super Bowl championship, and was finally replaced by a guy you may have heard of named Jerry Rice. So he was an unbelievable athlete. He was the best hurdler in the country. And sadly, because we boycotted the 1980 Olympics, he didn't get a chance to compete. And in those days, you couldn't make money as a track and field athlete. So to cash in on his athletic ability, he signed with the 49ers, made some money playing football, later did some professional track, but never got a chance to compete. And, that's one of the real, relative tragedies about that the greatest hurdler in the country didn't get a chance to compete for a gold medal. And so now we have already a gold medalist in Quincy Wilson signing with Maryland. His other possibilities could have gone to USC, could have gone to South Carolina, Texas A&M. There were schools, obviously, that wanted him. And he said he had a good relationship with the track coach. His name is Andrew Vollman. And Vollman won gold medals in 1988 and 92 in the 4x400 and helped set a world record in 1993. So that's his event. And he's got a coach he's connected with and, gets to stay close to his family, which is a cool thing. But track and field, which has never been on the radar at Maryland, except when they had Ronaldo Nehemiah, and that's going back over 40 years, now has someone that you can keep an eye on, and that's going to be cool when he competes in these international events wearing that Maryland what do they call it, singlet? I think it's a singlet, the thing that you wear, the sleeveless jersey. When he competes as a track and field athlete. And I imagine he'd wear that in the Olympics too. So great job by Maryland landing him, and they've had quite a run. Baba Alabdoutin, the basketball recruit, like 8th in the country, has signed with them, and they picked up a big football signee. Zion Eli is going to be joining the team next year. So things are looking up a little bit in College Park, and a big win for the basketball team last night. Coming up, what Dan Quinn says about the injuries heading into the Denver game. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Just reminded on Twitter that today is Joe Gibbs' 85th birthday. So happy birthday to Joe Gibbs. And when you think of his life, he has reached the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Certainly the 3 Super Bowl championships here makes him the most iconic figure in the history of DC sports. Certainly in the modern era. You want to argue Walter Johnson and Sammy Baugh, and sometimes I do, but I wouldn't here. I mean, this is the iconic person. If you're going to do a Mount Rushmore of DC sports, he is 100% on it. And in addition to winning the 3 Super Bowls, he's won a couple of Daytona 500s. He's been successful as a NASCAR owner. Few people have reached that kind of success in 2 fields like he has. Yet, he buried both of his sons. Both of them died at the age of 49, one of a neuromuscular disease, and the other one died in his sleep. He's got quite a few grandchildren. And his wife, of course, is still alive. But boy, what a gut punch twice to someone who has enjoyed such incredible success in what he has done professionally. And those are things that you look back on your life. And I'll never forget when he retired the first time. This would have been March of 1993. And he talked about, how the job had taken a toll on his family. And, he was famous for sleeping on a couch in his office during the week and not going home on the weekends. And he said, one night he came home late and he kissed one of his sons goodnight and noticed that he'd grown whiskers. And he said, man, I just haven't been home enough. And so that was part of his reason to he was only 52 when he retired the first time. And then, of course, he came back, and they were grown. And one of the reasons he said he came back was the younger son, Coy, who had played football at Stanford, was interested in getting in coaching. He didn't stay with it. He went back to the race team. But that was part, he said, of his motivation to come back. But just to think what a person goes through in a life, and you would say to yourself, wow, wouldn't it be great to be someone like Joe Gibbs and celebrate Super Bowl championships and NASCAR titles and so forth. But you also have to deal with what is the worst possible thing that could happen to a parent twice. The thought of burying a child once is hard to fathom. Twice is absolutely devastating. So I guess sort of a melancholy happy 85th birthday to Joe Gibbs. And God bless him. Whenever you see him, he puts on a face that everybody wants to see and makes the fan base feel good, and still is connected to the team in that way. But I just look at his entire life and think of the high highs and the low lows that he has experienced, which, in a different way brings us to the current football team, which at this point last year was, I think, about this time, coming out of this 3-game losing streak. It was over Thanksgiving weekend that they beat Tennessee and then went on that sprint and made the amazing run to the NFC Championship game. Doesn't look like this is going to be a playoff year. It would take a miracle run to get there. Now at 3-8, heading into the Monday night game against Sunday night game against Denver. This is Dan Quinn as he opened his news conference yesterday after being away for a full week for the bye.
I know somebody will inevitably ask maybe a question about what's ahead, and what I can tell you is certainly no luxury to do that, man. To me, it's all about right now, and we talk a lot about our culture and our standards, and those things weren't fully built just last year, and we began the building process of that, and man, it's cool. We're right in the thick of all that. So show me a team with a strong standard, and I can confidently say they've been through some shit, and that's kind of where your standards get strengthened and tested and all those good things, and that's exactly where we are. And as I told the team, for all of us, man, like, we can dig and get more. That's game day and really every day. It's more speed, that's more focus, and players and coaches, man, we can for sure do that.
The obvious first question was about Jaden Daniels and his availability. There have been reports that he was getting close, that he would be playing again this season, and he went through kind of a lengthy Q&A here on the Jaden Daniels situation, as well as the other injured players who may or may not be back this upcoming week.
It has been good. He will be able to return to practice. We had our first session today, but Johnny has not been cleared for contact. So, he'll probably be unlikely to play. But, man, it's good to get started and get the return to play going. So that's a big deal for us.
And how important is it for you to see him back out there playing again this year?
I think it's important as Jaden's getting going, learning to play like this position at the highest level competitively, also doing it safely. And those are reps, that you develop as well. It's a skill just like throwing and processing. And so all those things are important. But him included, it was awesome today to have everyone really back at practice, John, including 3 guys that were in their 21-day window, and too early to call a lot of the guys, for the game. But getting on the field and having the guys here, John, that was a big deal, man, to have that many. It's been a long time since I've said that out loud of everybody's here and working. That's for sure.
Nikki?
Assuming that includes Terry McLaurin, kind of what is his trajectory? Where's he at in his recovery?
Yeah, it was good to see him, man. That smile lit up, and so it wasn't like a full speed hauling ass day, Nikki, but that's kind of what we're hoping the progression for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday looks like for he and some of his teammates. But he's really worked hard, and so to see us take the next step, like, we'll see where it takes us. But it was awesome to have him out there today. I'm excited for him.
And for all those guys, I'm sure the injuries have been frustrated, especially for them. What have you seen from them as they've mentally dealt with it? And then what do you need to see from them to know that they're ready for the final stretch here?
Yeah, for some of the guys, when you've been out for a while, it definitely takes some resilience, Nikki, because especially when there's like a different injury or a re-injury, because that's the easy space to go down the dark spot where it's why again or those things. And so you want to check, mentally where they're at and make sure the things they now can control are this part of the rehab and healing and getting better. And so I knew they would come. But when you're in the thick of it, sometimes it can be hard to see, just on the other side, of the street. But for those guys in specific, knowing they're back doing what they love to do and back on the field, it's a big step, and it definitely adds a lift.
Okay, so that's kind of the rundown on the injured players. Noah Brown, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, He is encouraged by Will Harris. He believes Will Harris, the corner, will be back. He's been out with a broken leg, so that's one injury hurdle that they're going to clear this week. The others are not sure. As for more on the plan for Jaden Daniels, as he said, it's unlikely that he's going to play this week. But what about further down the line?
I didn't have a long-term space until you got more spots from the doctors, meaning how's the healing coming? Where is that going to go? The extension and flexion of the elbow. So once we knew that was headed in the right direction, then that, it would kind of take care of itself. When, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that part, I don't know. And I still don't have all the answers on that. That's kind of how the player heals and where he's at. And then as far as that's not something we really discussed internally. The first part for us, honestly, Howard, was like, hey, how are we going to get the player better? And let's dig in on that first, not knowing the exact time frame. So that's really where the focus was, right away and right off the bat. We knew we had the bye coming, and then we'd have a chance to regroup and huddle up and, kind of push from there.
Yeah, so it sounds like he's going to be back for the Minnesota game a week from Sunday. That would be 5 games left in the season. And if you want to say, what are they doing? Wrap them in bubble, get them ready for next year. I don't think so. There's 17 games, and you're going to hear this from Quinn here about the importance of each game and getting guys better for the run for next year. If miraculous things happen, because they're not mathematically eliminated, maybe we get to the last couple of weeks of the season, there is a possibility. But at this point, it's more about developing this roster and finding players, because this is what this season is about as well. You're going to have a lot of turnover. These older guys, it's going to be time to go. God bless Bobby Wilson. God bless Zach Ertz, but those guys probably are not going to be here next year. So, again, this is Quinn, more on the McLaurin status and others as we head towards Sunday.
I'm excited about, the possibilities because of his speed and how he's moving. And so those are big steps, JP. And so maybe I saw Will already do it, the full speed spots at practice, come back and do it again. And so that's the space that we need to see from Terry and repeat it. And so once I see that, then I'll let the optimism, grow stronger. But let's take us through those 2 steps first.
Thank you. And then I'm curious, obviously the season hasn't gone the way you wanted, but with these last 6 games, how important for you is it to try to get the team? I mean, you and Adam built this team to be a playoff contender, right? Like, how important is it for you to see that group perform at that level?
Yeah, I want to see us not working to that. I want that to be the standard as we move forward this game, the next game, and on. None of the trajectory. I'm saying, like, let's nail these standards that we're looking for. The good news that I would say, like, JP, like, this is a cool group, man. And so a lot of fight, a lot of attitude, and there's been some opportunities for some new faces and some new spots. And I don't take those lightly either. When guys want to demonstrate, I can step up, I can make this move, I can do the next thing, whether they were here prior or new to the club. And so I think I'm just excited, man, to get rolling with some of the guys and hopefully have a few on their way back as well. So it's a big deal for us.
All right, day off today, practice tomorrow, and we'll see where this all goes as they get ready for the Sunday night game. Tom Lovero's got a good column today, and I don't know whether you've watched this or not, but there was a 3-part documentary series on HBO about Alex Rodriguez, and the title is Alex versus A-Rod. And what it reminded me of is Lawrence Taylor. Big difference between Lawrence Taylor and the character LT. And I remember talking to Harry Carson when Taylor got in the Hall of Fame, and there was controversy about that because even then there had been some off-the-field stuff, and since then he hasn't gone to jail for this, but he was caught in a hotel room with a 16-year-old girl who he said he thought was 19 years old, and he got probation for that. But there's been a lot of off-the-field things with him, DUIs, things like that, and of course he had a suspension in 1988 for using cocaine. So he's got a checkered off the field story, but on the field, obviously he's the Hall of Famer. And then you get to Alex Rodriguez, who, in fact, broke the cardinal rule, not the betting rule, but the was in the Mitchell report and has since come clean and said, yeah, I was an idiot. I used steroids and I used HGH, and the HGH thing cost him an entire season. He did play 22 years. His numbers are beyond belief. I mean, if you look at these numbers, they scream Hall of Fame. 696 home runs, 3,000 hits, 2,000 runs batted in, 22 years with the Mariners, the Rangers, and the Yankees. Yes, he only won one World Series, but he's a Hall of Famer. But because of the of being popped for the PEDs, he's not going to be, at least for now. But this is what Tom writes in his column today, and he says it's going to be interesting to watch the Trump effect. The unpredictable Trump tsunami, as he calls it, could play havoc with the Hall of Fame elections for the 2026 Baseball Writers Hall of Fame ballot to be announced on January 20th to the contemporary era voting, which will take place on December 7th. So we're pretty close to that. Contemporary era means guys who are off the ballot for the Hall of Fame because their time on it has run out. But you've got, three numbers-wise certain Hall of Famers. Barry Bonds, the all-time leading home run hitter for season and career. Roger Clemens, who won, I think, close to 350 games. And Alex Rodriguez. So what happens here? Now, they've been kept off the ballot because voters like Tom Lavero, Tom's a voter, have said, no way, we're not putting these steroid guys in. Others, like Tim Kirchin of ESPN, says, yes, I have voted for them because, and he says, I understand how people would have a problem with that, but my feeling is we don't know who is using what, and their numbers suggest that they should absolutely be Hall of Famers. And, I guess since it's a museum, that people would know that they played in the steroid era. And if you do any kind of research on any of them, only takes a couple of minutes, you're going to know that the reason that they didn't become Hall of Famers when they were eligible to be was because of that. So that's the Tim take, whereas Tom is more of a hardliner on that. And then, of course, Trump has also pushed for Pete Rose to get in the Hall of Fame. And in April, Trump met with baseball commissioner Rob Manfred, and they discussed Rose's status. 2 months later, the commissioner announced permanent bans in baseball now end with the death of the individual. He said his talk with the president influenced his decision. So Pete Rose is now on the contemporary ballot. Remember, he was banned for life by Commissioner Bart Giamatti in 1989, was never reinstated. And because he was banned from baseball for life, the Hall of Fame couldn't consider him. What Manfred did was tweaked it a little bit and said, well, it was for life, and since he died in 2024, the for life thing ends because he's not alive anymore. So that's going to be one to watch. Now, what Tom says, Rose can't be considered until 2027. So he's not going to be a Hall of Famer for this year, this upcoming year, 2026. It would be 2027. And then, of course, you get to the Bonds and the Clemens question about that. And then he gets to A-Rod. And I did watch this documentary, and I got to say, I was sympathetic because when a guy says, I was stupid to do this, I'm a fool, and at one point he even says about the Hall of Fame, he says, look, it's the Hall of Fame, it's not heaven. And for a guy who he admits became the A-Rod character rather than Alex Rodriguez leading him to this, I can kind of understand it. And he's become very successful in business. He's part owner of the Minnesota Timberwolves. He seems to have a very good relationship with his ex-wife and a very, very good relationship with his two daughters. So in many ways, he's cleansed himself, though not necessarily for the Hall of Fame. Especially all the lying that he did. As Tom points out, he's still on the writer's ballot, and this will be his fifth time on the ballot. He hasn't come close to the 75% necessary for induction. Last year, he got about half that, 37%. But the numbers, of course, would suggest that he would be a Hall of Famer. And, is he being cleansed by this documentary and other things that he's done? He even says he's a recovering narcissist. Okay, it's good that he admits that. And then you get into the whole Trump thing and, what Trump says one day or 1 year isn't necessarily what he says another, but he goes back to an interview that Trump did in 2012. So we're going back, quite a ways here. That's 13 years ago. And A-Rod, I think he was still playing then. And he said, I would terminate his contract. He said he told George Steinbrenner that. He said, I would have done it. I would have terminated his contract on the basis that when he signed, he didn't say that he took drugs. Since he signed his contract, they found out he took drugs. He actually admitted that he took drugs. This is Trump talking. Now he's not taking drugs anymore, and without the drugs, he's a less than average player. No, that's wrong. He was not a less than average player without the drugs, which made the taking of the drugs so stupid. But no, he was not a less than average player, Mr. Trump. The president said, as Tom writes here, he's never been a fan of Rodriguez, either as a player or a person. Rodriguez actually lived in a Trump building, and the president said he had a bad experience with A-Rod, though he declined to specify why. And he even says now, 2020, when Trump was still in office, this would have been, I guess, March of 2020, April, he called A-Rod for advice on response to the coronavirus pandemic. According to USA Today, Rodriguez has been spotted at Mar-a-Lago as well. So maybe it's been mended. My guess is, Trump was trying to figure out a way to get baseball back on the field as soon as possible. Remember, we only had, I think, 65 games in 2020, so maybe he was asking him for advice on that. But interesting look at that, and you wonder if there will be a Trump effect either December 7th when the Contemporary Committee meets or when the ballots are due in January from the writers as to who they put in the Hall of Fame. And it's not just, the Trump influence here. Again, I give you one of the most respected and well-known baseball journalists. Tim's actually in the Hall of Fame himself in the writer's wing for his great career. And he is saying, put these guys in. So this could be one of the more interesting votes just to see if there is a bump on this, both from the Contemporary Committee and the writers. But there are, a lot of hardliners, and obviously the majority of them hardliners like Tom, who say that because they took drugs, they should not get in. Interesting look. Coming up, Scott Van Pelt with a really good conversation with George Kittle after the 49ers win last night. And it was 45 years ago today that we had the No Mas fight. So, what do you think of Brock Purdy these days? Got the big money, but threw 3 interceptions last night. They won the game, thanks to Christian McCaffrey. But, not all these big money deals for quarterbacks are instant successes. See Daniel Jones, though he's had a resurgence in Indianapolis. And the coaching go-round continues in college football. Lane Kiffin's got a team that looks like it's going to be in the playoff, and he may bolt before it starts. Crazy. And it was 45 years ago today that we had the famous No Mas fight, where Roberto Duran threw up his hands and said in Spanish, I'm done. Yeah, quitting. Oh, the ultimate in sports. We'll get to that coming up later this hour. As I say, the 49ers did manage to win last night despite 3 Brock Purdy interceptions. They beat the Panthers 20-9. Didn't he have 5 on Christmas Day last year? I think he did. But anyway, Niners are 8-4 on the season. McCaffrey, 142 yards and a touchdown. He's 29 years old, and he's had a ton of injuries. But he's leading the league in carries, and maybe it's all the time missed that he wasn't on the field. True, he had injuries, but he looks incredible right now. And it was the Panthers that traded him. They got 4 draft picks in return, but when you got a superstar like that, it's hard to imagine that it's not a good deal for the 49ers. It certainly was last night as they beat them head-to-head 20-9. After the game, George Kittle, who has got a burgeoning media career, he's going to be doing something in media when he's done playing, but he led the 49ers with 6 catches for 78 yards and talked to Scott Van Pelt.
George, we have lots to get to that's very, very important. Iowa, Nebraska. I know there's somebody you want to speak to very directly. We'll get to that. The game itself, we'll get to that too. I just want you to know that in pregame, when you do that thing with the overhead camera and you go rock, paper, scissors, you went scissor. Yeah. Kelsey, I believe, went paper, so you beat him. But Swag and RC both went rock, so you lost to them and you beat Kelsey. I just want you to have that bookkeeping, all right?
you know what's nice, too, is right after that, a kid challenged me. He had a sign that said rock, paper, scissors for an autograph, and I beat him, too. And then I did still sign for him, though, after my warm-up. But I beat him as well.
That's because you're a man of the people, and you want to leave them happy, and you do. And everybody leaving in Santa Clara that's cheering for you guys leaves happy. It's a complimentary game. The offense wasn't as sharp as it was last week, but the defense really pitches in as well. What's the moral of the night when you leave victorious? I assume that's really all that matters, isn't it, George?
I mean, winning in the NFL is really hard. It is what it is. So anytime you can get out with a W, you're happy about it. You know, obviously, we're frustrated we didn't put up more points. I think our offense is, we're striving to score 30-plus every single time. We didn't do that tonight, but that's what our goal is. And, the nice thing is I felt like we moved the ball really, really well besides, like, one time, which was that last drive. The second to last drive, which we got, 3 and outed. But besides that, I thought we moved the ball really well. We just got to protect the football, and, Brock will be good at that. They ran some pretty good coverages. One of those interceptions, they did a lurk with the backside corner, which was pretty impressive. I haven't seen that one in a long time. But, overall, happy with what our defense did. Our safety, Jair Brown, 2 picks for him. Awesome. Made some tackles. So just happy our defense had our backs today.
Yeah, and I asked Joe Buck about that because there's so many shots of Robert Saleh with a big smile on the face. I know you told Lisa Salters that was the best free agent acquisition of the offseason. He's such a huge part of who you guys were prior to leaving to go to New York. And you all are so banged up on defense. To see those guys come up with a couple of picks and to hold this Carolina team that went nuts last week to just 9, it's got to feel great for those guys just to see them pitch in the way they did.
Absolutely. I'll just say that, the more we play, like, you can't replace Fred Warner. You can't replace Nick Bosa. Hard to replace your first-round draft pick in Michael. But it's just like over the course of these weeks, these young players, like you're seeing them kind of take command of the defense, right? They're becoming themselves. They're growing as players. Malik Mustafa's flying around, setting the tone, hitting people. Tig is getting those interceptions. Our defensive line is applying pressure. And, just the more games that we play, the more they're going to grow, and we're going to get guys that are going to become superstars for us.
I have a real admiration, George, for your organization because, like, the easiest thing in the world to say is next man up. But with respect, the next man who plays, line isn't Bosa or backer's not Fred, tight end's not you, quarterback's not Brock, even though Mac, all the guys that have filled in have done nice jobs. I just wonder what it says about you all collectively that you're able to hang in and tough it out and get to this point in the season in an incredibly tough division where your record is what it is. What does that say about the collective that's in your building?
I think we've built a fantastic culture here. We have a great foundation of people, guys who've been here for a long time that kind of set the tone. And the 49ers organization, we have a standard at which we play at, which we try to hold each other accountable to. And even when your best players are out, we still want to hold guys to that standard. And, whether it's Fred, sitting in the linebackers meetings, helping those guys out, Bosa helping out the D-line, me helping out the tight ends when I was out for a couple weeks, Mac Jones stepping in and had a great stint for us. It's just awesome. And I just put a lot of credit on, Coach Shanahan, Coach Saleh, and just all the assistant coaches for just keeping that standard up and just, hey, guys, yeah, it is the next man up. But what I always try to tell guys is, like, the NFL is the land of opportunity, man. You don't know when you're going to get your chance, and you might not be ready for that chance. But it doesn't matter. Life's not waiting for you, man. You got to go out there and take that opportunity. You got to take control of that. And I think that's what our guys did tonight, and we're going to continue to just get a little bit better every single week.
Right on. Do me a favor, tell Fred Warner I say hello. He's always been incredibly kind and gracious with his time through the years. Let's have some fun on the way out here. My producer is an Iowa grad, and I know that there's my favorite part of this week is how many incredible games there are. There's a nooner in Lincoln. You never lost there. Yeah. There's a guy that's he's got a burgeoning media career that's busting with the boys and all that. He's a Nebraska. I don't know how he's doing after what happened at State College. I don't know if you want to address him directly, or this floor is yours as it relates to Iowa and Nebraska.
Hey, Will Compton, didn't really appreciate your voice memo on the day of my Monday Night Football game talking crap to me about Nebraska, Iowa. Didn't settle with me. You know what? I didn't like it. And, that's the type of thing Nebraska does. They take cheap shots. Hey, I'm preparing for a Monday Night Football game on national television, and you're coming to me about Nebraska, Iowa. That means you're scared. You're terrified. You lost by 30 at Penn State. They just fired their coach. You lost by 30? Are you kidding me? I was going to come in there, run the ball down your throat, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sit on the bus that doesn't go anywhere and shut your mouth, Will Compton.
That's called a pop.
Shut up.
That's called a pop in the business. This is a man that's going to be elite in the wrestling space someday, and media and whatever else. Meanwhile, keep doing what you're doing, catching the football and moving the chains and helping your squad win games. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Thanks as always for taking the time, throwing on the headset, and visiting with us here on SportsCenter.
Anything for you, Scott Van Pelt. You are a legend. It is an honor to talk to you.
Amen to that. George Kittle, Scott Van Pelt, after San Francisco won last night 20-9 against Carolina. That's Kittle, 6 catches for 78 yards. And, yeah, he's a natural to do wrestling. And Will Compton, got to give him credit for this. He was a linebacker here for a few years. Team wasn't good. And he was known as the smartest guy on the field. He has transitioned into kind of a different role here, but as a businessman, you got to say he's smart. The bussing with the boys that he does with Taylor Lewan, that's really caught on. They've got some stuff going on with ESPN, and they're figuring out the new media world and probably profiting. He maybe even making more money than he did playing football, but he's a Nebraska guy. You know, he wears that on his sleeve. So a little trash talk between George Kittle, who of course played at Iowa, and Will Compton, who played at Nebraska, as those teams match up. Not the biggest game on the board this weekend, but of some interest. And we'll get to the Ohio State-Michigan game, which you talk about pressure. Ohio State may be a 9.5-point favorite in Ann Arbor on Saturday, but given their recent history against Michigan, they overcame that to a large degree last year by winning the national title, but you just cannot lose to Michigan again. That has gotten coaches fired on both sides. You don't win that game, doesn't really matter what else you do short of winning the national title. If you don't beat Ohio State, if you're the coach at Michigan, or you don't beat Michigan if you're the coach at Ohio State, you ain't going to last. It just does not work that way. Meantime, back to the NFL, where we've got the AFC North, which has taken on a totally different look in the last several weeks, with the Ravens now on a hot streak after the 1-5 start. Yesterday, pardon the interruption, as they laid out all the turkey and all the sides yesterday on their annual Thanksgiving show. Tony and Mike looking at the new look of the AFC North.
Where the sleeping Ravens have awakened. They won their 5th game in a row yesterday, beating the Jets 23-10. They are now in first place in that division because Pittsburgh lost to your Chicago Bears 31-28. Yeah. Now the Steelers would lose the tiebreaker to the Ravens in division. They would be out of the playoffs. And by the way, also in that division, Shedeur Sanders had a pretty good game. Browns beat the Raiders 24-10, after which Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly got the heave-ho. Wilbon, of all this stuff, what's your headline?
I'm sorry. You mentioned Cleveland, and you didn't mention, and bow your head when you say this, Myles Garrett.
No, I did not.
Okay. Maybe Matthew Stafford is the best player, in the MVP in the league, because he's a quarterback on a winning team. The best player in the NFL right now is the guy who has 13 sacks in his last 4 games.
Okay.
7 in his last 2. But who's up there now with the likes of Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White, and that's Myles Garrett.
But he's not going to win the MVP because he's on a losing team.
I know. But I'm just saying, the headline.
Yeah. Oh, that's your headline?
This guy keeps Shedeur Sanders. If they're down as many points as they could be down, Shedeur Sanders doesn't even matter.
That's right.
And by the way, I'm rooting, because we root for his father and have for a long time. We root for Shedeur Sanders.
Get to that.
We do. You and I do. Come on now, Myles Garrett.
Okay, so that's your answer.
And by the way, Joe Burrow coming back, he's going to play Thursday night.
I am tempted to say as a headline, Rodgers out, Steelers lose, because I think he owns the Bears. I believe he has said that a number of times when he was in Green Bay.
Yes.
Right? You know, and I can't help but think that if he played in that game, there might have been some change.
You only need one play.
I can't give the headline to the Ravens because, come on, they beat the Jets.
Right.
I understand they won 5 in a row. Maybe they get a cumulative headline. But 3 of those 5 are the Jets, Miami, and Cleveland. And I can't give Shedeur Sanders the headline because he was better than last week. Last week he was terrible. He was okay. He was 11 for 20. He was fine.
But it was the first week he's prepared. The other week was like he was.
But I'm annoyed. I'm
going
to allude to what you said before. Okay. I got annoyed when he said everyone wants me to lose.
No,
I don't want him to lose, and you don't want him to lose.
Win.
In fact, we root for him.
Yes.
So reluctantly, here's my headline of all of this: Bears win again. How are they doing this?
I don't know.
They have a negative plus minus differential. They're 8, or they 8-3?
How about this?
I would say their coach is my second choice for coach of the year right now, Ben Johnson.
Tony, In every defensive metric, we're somewhere between 28 and 32.
How are you doing this?
I believe my man, Caleb, I believe this is it, though. I think he has the lowest completion percentage of any
How
of
can
the
you be
starters.
8-3?
It's timely. We have a blocked field goal in the last play. 2 field goals have ended games.
Yeah.
Every game is close. How about the Cincinnati game where 2 guys crash into each other and our rookie tight end and can't tackle him? I don't know, but that Commanders game, every time the Bears and Commanders play, something inexplicable happens the rest of the year.
I got 2 or 3 words for you.
What?
One word is Eagles on Friday. That's 3 words. And then at Green Bay.
Yeah, and aside from the Bears, if you're looking at the Ravens, interesting development as they've got a home game on Thanksgiving night against the Bengals, and Joe Burrow is going to play. Now, the Bengals may be too far out of it to climb back in. But with Burrow, they are a different team. Remember, they started the year 2-0. He got hurt in the second game. And they've really struggled. They've got a couple of nice games out of Joe Flacco. But with Joe Burrow, suddenly Cincinnati becomes formidable. And maybe they're not good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe it won't work out that way. But, you know, if they can take down the Ravens, and the Ravens have won 5 straight, give them credit for that. But the NFL is exactly as Jerry Glanville said, not for long. And even good teams, you know, slip up and lose games. And that's a real tough game now. Suddenly a tough game for the Ravens, even though it's a home game, taking on the Bengals with Joe Burrow back. And then, you know, with the Steelers and the injury to Aaron Rodgers in his wrist, he missed this last game against the Bears, as they were talking about. But you know, even if he plays in the next game or you know, is relatively healthy the rest of the year, that's probably going to bother him. He is 41 years old, and a long season may start to catch up with him. So there's a lot to be determined here. And we have, about 6 weeks of football? Yeah, about 6 weeks, 7 weeks of football left, or is all the buys been used up? But January, the first week of January is when the regular season ends. And between now and then, you know, we'll see some crazy things happen. We do it every year. And we'll see some teams like Cincinnati who have been left for dead. We go, whoa. Wait a minute. There's a pulse here. I think we had this the other, was it last week? There was a story about a woman who was being sent off to be cremated. A body of a woman, I should say, but it actually was a woman. Turned out she was still alive. And maybe that's the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll find out about that. All right, coming up, 45 years ago today, the famous no mas fight, Roberto Duran against Sugar Ray Leonard in a rematch of a fight that had taken place only a few months earlier, said, reportedly, which has never been fully established, and we'll investigate that, reportedly said, no mas. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Bram is coming up at 11 o'clock. It was 45 years ago today that Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran fought at the Louisiana Superdome in New Orleans. And this was the second fight in just a few months. It was June 20th of that year, 1980, that they fought in Montreal. And Sugar Ray lost the fight. Duran won by a unanimous decision, but it was a narrow unanimous decision. And he was, I guess, the champion when they had this rematch such a short time later in the Superdome. And Leonard had a different strategy this time. He was the defending champion for the first one, and he didn't use his usual, slick style, the Muhammad Ali shuffle kind of thing, and he stood kind of toe-to-toe with Duran. That didn't work. So the rematch, he was ready for this. And in round 7, Leonard started to taunt Duran. Late in the round, winding up his right hand as if to throw what he called a bolo punch, Leonard snapped out a left jab and caught Duran in the face. In the closing seconds of the 8th round, Duran turned his back to Leonard and quit, waving his glove, saying to the referee, apparently no mas. He had later denied that. But this is Howard Cosell calling it as it happened, followed by react from Sugar Ray Leonard several years ago when he talked to Joe Buck about the fight.
Duran has quit. Roberto Duran has quit. That's better.
You like that highlight better?
I like that better.
I mean, that's how I grew up watching boxing. That is just pure beauty.
Well, Duran was just so, I don't know. Things were so different. It was night and day from the first fight to the second fight. The first fight, I was stationary against the ropes, in the corners, and he was able to take advantage of that. This fight here, Duran was like a bully. I hate to say it, but he was like a bully. And when you challenge a bully or fight him back, they do one or two things. They come back stronger, or they run away. Duran threw his hands up in frustration without realizing the ramifications it would have on his legacy.
He quit.
He quit, yeah.
He quit in the 8th round, and this is a guy who had the title. He's handing it. Now, I say that, and I know you want to reach over this thing and punch me right in the head, because what I know is stuck with you since then is, yeah, he quit. Did he say no mas? Did he not? I don't know. But he quit because you were kicking his ass. Coming out of that fight, it was all about Duran quitting in the 8th round when it gave you no credit for being the one that forced him to quit in the 8th round, right?
That's true. I mean, absolutely. But I was also being a little selfish. The fact that it wasn't about, it was why he quit, you know? And it wasn't that I made him quit. It was like, why did he quit? I made him quit. And it bothered me for a while, a few months maybe a year. But we did a thing together and went to Mom. And we met up again and in the ring. And I said, Roberto, you know, all these years later, now people want to know what happened in that ring. Only you can tell them the truth. And I was really waiting for him to say, yeah, you really frustrated me, and I threw my hands up in defeat. I was waiting to hear that. I want to hear that so bad, really, really bad. And he said, I had cramps. He said I had cramps, but then again, I saw him searching for words, and I saw tears in his eyes, and I backed away. I said, you know what, Roberto, it's okay. It's okay.
Did you hear him say no mas?
Didn't hear him say no mas, but if you do this, what does this mean?
No mas.
No mas.
From that moment on, it meant no mas, literally.
Yeah, but again, Roberto Duran, legendary, without question, in some incredible contests in the ring. He's a legend, without question.
But to get back to that, you wanted to hear him say, you beat me, right?
That way. I wanted him to say that I made it. Again, that was the selfish part of me. They wanted to hear him say that. But as a man to another man, if it causes you that much pain, it's okay.
That's Sugar Ray Leonard with his account of the fight that took place 45 years ago, the no mas fight. Now, Duran has said that he wasn't saying no mas when Cosell, as you heard him say, quit. He said he was saying no sigo, meaning I'm not carrying on. He said he quit because of the stomach cramps, which started to bother him in the 5th round. He said the cramps occurred because he took the weight off too quickly, then ate too much the morning of the weigh-in. But his manager later said that that's what he always did before a fight and didn't quit because of stomach cramps. He quit because he was embarrassed by the way that Leonard was beating him. Now, I've also heard from a boxing insider on this, and the evidence of this was I went to the press conference before the 3rd fight. The 3rd fight didn't take place till 9 years later, December 7th of 1989 in Las Vegas, and Leonard held on with a 12-round unanimous decision, beating him. At that point, you know, they were both Ulta cockers and way over the hill. But the thing about that press conference before that fight was Duran, and it was a few months before it, Duran looked like the Michelin Man. I mean, he had ballooned up, and I couldn't believe what he looked like when the fight started. So he was used to taking off weight quickly. But this is what I heard about this particular no mas fight 45 years ago, that he had, you know, basically starved himself down to get under the required weight for the welterweight fight. And then, as you're allowed to do, the weigh-in is the day before, you're allowed to eat before the fight. And what I was told was he put down something like a 32-ounce steak and drank a quart of grapefruit juice. And the combination of the two things, had a big effect on his stomach. And he was afraid that he was going to, crap his pants. And that's why he quit. He didn't want to be embarrassed by that. I mean, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but as it turned out, Leonard won 2 of the 3 fights. I don't know how much you count the last one in 1989, but I do remember this. That was the first time I saw HDTV. I was a reporter then with UPI, and I was invited to the Javits Center to watch the fight. And what we now accept as television was kind of eye-opening then. Wow, look how clear that is, HDTV. Anyway, the reputation in the meantime for Duran took a hit after the No Mas fight, that they had taken his television commercials off in Panama and the United States. And then he had a resurgence on his 32nd birthday, June 16th of 83. He knocked out the undefeated Davey Moore in the 8th round to win the WBA Junior Middleweight Championship, and then he was a hero again in Panama. But, I think if you look at the history of boxing and you talk about certain fights, the Thrilla in Manila, when Ali beat Joe Frazier in the 3rd fight, the Rumble in the Jungle when Ali beat George Foreman. Down goes Frazier with Foreman beating Frazier when he was the heavyweight champion. The first fight between Ali and Frazier, which is the biggest sporting event of my lifetime, took place March 8th of 1971. All those things that add up. But if you say no mas, everybody who is a sports fan, you don't even have to be much of a boxing fan. If you're a sports fan, if you say the words no mas, it instantly registers that there is this fight between 2 of the best to ever do it, Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, and Duran doing the one thing that you can never do in sports, and that is quit. And I wonder if today, in the age of social media, he would be so shamed for doing that he might never box again. I'll tell you this. I was working in San Antonio at the time, and the news director at the station had gone to a closed-circuit telecast of this. This wasn't, the way they do it now, pay-per-view. Hardly anybody had cable in those days. And he went to a place where they were showing the fight on a big screen, and he said, and San Antonio is half the population is Hispanic. He said people were throwing chairs in anger. That's how angry they were at Roberto Duran saying, allegedly, no mas, or at least quitting in the fight. I am going to quit for today, but I will be back tomorrow. Bram is coming up next. And again, I'll see you in the morning at 9 a.m.